Heading to cloud server. Okay. You heard that too, right? So we're recording.
Yep.
Cool. Yep. I need to fix the editor. Cool. Yeah, I guess we could just start essentially.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a rundown of what we're looking at then, or
Yeah.
the video?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So my thinking is if I wanted to build something like Spotify and they have this idea of mixed playlists. The idea is you can build your own playlists and add any songs to that, and that's your own playlist. But Spotify comes with these custom playlists that, based on your listening history, I'm assuming listening history, your likes or whatever, um, they have many different custom playlists for different moods, times of day, activities, things like that. So it'd be, getting up, um, going to bed, going for a run, things to pump you up, things to relax you, whatever. So they have all these custom playlists, and obviously they can't be the same for each person. They have to be different. So they have to have some way of calculating and creating these custom playlists. And there's sort of a theme to that playlist, but then they have to have some way of using someone's personal listening history or whatever to construct that playlist. And they seem to be refreshable or something like that. So they do change over time. They're not like static playlists, but you can take that playlist and use your playlist for running and listen to that for years on end or whatever. So they're managing that somehow, and they must have some way of creating new versions of these playlists for these, with a special name that's it's the same name for everybody. Everyone gets the same name on this playlist, but the songs on that playlist are going to be different for every person individually. So the idea there is like, if we have a system where we know we have all these songs and we know the songs that a person has listened to, all their history of how many listens they have of any particular song, or whether they've liked that song or not. Maybe we include that or something. We also have categorizations for songs, so we know what genre they're in, or what era. This is from the 90s, or we have a maybe even like mood, tempo. I don't know if tempo should be included, but some various categorizations that could occur. And then we've also got like probably some way of doing a nearest neighbor search to say, like, for this song, find all the songs in its vicinity based on these
Yeah.
categorizations. And we can assume that's outside of the system. We don't need to model that, but we can just get that for any particular song.
Yeah. We're assuming
How
we
would
can
we
find a genre, mood, all that stuff for the song for
Yeah.
this particular case. Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Then how would we go about building a system that would allow us to create these playlists so that each person could have their own custom playlist based on their own preferences? So that's the
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I almost feel like I'm hitting a little bit of analysis paralysis, but I'm not quite sure where to start. So I was wondering, I kind of feel like just doing class mix. I don't know what that would entail or something, but it's almost
Mhm.
like, and I guess we want something like a playlist or something in a way. Maybe we should do, don't continue class user or something,
Mhm.
maybe playlists or something, or yeah, I don't know sure where to take it
So
from
then
here
a
because we have
playlist
these.
might represent a playlist that a user creates themselves, or a playlist that's a custom one that Spotify generates for them. Or is this just for the custom ones, you think?
Hello? There
Hey.
we go. Looks like it's my interconnection. It just completely went
Yeah.
down. So now I'm trying to use my phone.
Oh. Oh, that's crazy.
If that's gonna work better or something. I have very rarely have I had that happen before, but typically enough when you're like doing something like this. Um, let's see. And I guess I need to. Is it still recording? Is it recording
Yeah.
progress? Or should I start? Okay, fair enough.
It switched me to
Share
the
screen.
host and then seemed like it kept
Oh,
recording.
okay. That's fun. Cool. Okay, we're back. Let's see, class play. So yeah, a place would be what a user would pick themselves or
Hmm.
have done themselves or yeah, set up and then mixes more of that. Yeah, the cost or the system based one that's a little bit based on these criteria or whatever you want to call it, or
Yeah.
categorizations or something.
Yeah.
Cool. I wonder, should we try to look at the history of played songs so we have sort of an idea of that maybe, of like I'm almost wondering if we have just some sort of a has one like listening history or something like that. History,
Oh,
and
interesting.
then
Hmm.
sometimes I wonder if it should be like a more thing based on center like namespacing. Can you figure this out? Let's
Yeah.
try that.
Do you think listens ought to be like a count or individual records?
I would almost put it as individual records in
Yeah.
a way, just for starters. Probably not a the Spotify scale, but
Yeah.
what we're doing right now, I think that's just going to be easier. Then we could always like, if it's a real scale, that would be a different thing.
Yeah.
See, oh, and then we can track a specific listen or something. And I
Hmm.
guess is that then nested too? I guess it is. Let's see that. Let's listen. And then a listen belongs to. It doesn't necessarily belongs to a user because that belongs to the history. Has many
Right.
listens, then belongs to history, and then it belongs to a,
A
so this is
song
more
or
of a
track or
join
something.
table. Yeah, what track though? Let's see that
Yeah.
belongs to track. And then it
What
has
led
to
you
like
to
create
do
a that
the
update it.
what tell me about the history? What were you thinking
I
there? What
Yeah, I guess I am not sure exactly.
Mhm.
It just feels like there might be more things that's related to the overall like history management or something in the
Yeah.
future. So it might be nice to capture outside of the user itself.
Yeah, like
Something we've done
preferences
it before.
about
We have a little bit.
how long to retain history or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Something like that where it's otherwise we'd end up chucking that on the user. Sometimes I've done it before where I put it on the user, and sometimes I put it on like a separate. Sometimes it's like having the idea of sometimes that's like a record holder or something like
Yeah.
that, sort of its own little space.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But I don't know exactly why. So I'm just kind of, we could
No,
always
that's
rip it
cool.
out if it doesn't seem like it's a fit. So
Yeah.
cool.
So now we have all the listens. Maybe the next place is tracks, or unless
Yeah,
we need to go
let's
deeper
do
into
that.
users.
Rack. Well, the other thing I was thinking about was maybe doing shortening this to be listen. And then
Mhm.
you have, instead of a listen here, you have a record. Sometimes I like
Record.
doing
Okay.
that too. So you have
Yeah.
it's a little bit more scoped in a way.
Hmm.
So this then has many records or so. What's this? Well, record is kind of a loaded term in this terminology, but and it just becomes sort of a listen history.
Okay. Yeah.
Or I guess suppose could be maybe it could just be history in a way. But now we're getting into weeds of this kind of stuff. Let's go. I'm gonna go
Right.
back to just before, just to show a little bit of the thinking. Let's see
Hmm.
track. Um, and then track would almost have these dimensions, categorizations, something like that, where I'm guessing it's
Yeah.
almost like, and this is where we don't need to go too into depth with that categorizations, which is like genre, mood, all that stuff. This is from the 90s, this is from like the year
Right.
released and stuff based on the metadata. So for
Hmm.
instance, I wonder if a track would have, it would probably have a released on or something like that. It's like, hey, this was released on this
Hmm.
date, 1986 or whatever, June 1st or something. But then you could
Yeah.
also extract a categorization from that, which would then be, so there'd probably be some way for the system to like, oh, a new song gets added, we can automatically start filtering out and like generate categorizations from that. Because I think that
Hmm.
would be different from the metadata in the track itself.
Like
Because
its
categorizations would
length
then be,
or the artist or things like that.
yes, exactly. Yeah. So the metadata gets to exist just on the track itself, but then the
Yeah.
categorizations are kind of the way we tie that data slightly differently to the rest of the system. I think that's the way I would model it. And again, I'm not quite sure why, but just sometimes when you do something that's a little bit too specific to the attributes of something, it becomes a little bit too nested. Versus if sometimes it feels nicer to keep things a little bit more separate when you start, because otherwise it's come when it's too bundled together, it
Mhm.
tends to stay that way. Whereas it's easier to see if you made the wrong mistake or you made the wrong mistake. That's funny. But made the right call if you have something that's more extracted, because then you can always merge them later.
Mhm.
Which is otherwise it's tough to see the concept early if you don't name it or try to name it or something.
Right.
I tend to
I wonder
overname a little bit or
how
extract a little bit more, but yeah.
part of me is wondering, like with categorizations, if it will apply well to everything, like everything listed up there: genre,
Yeah,
mood, era, instrumental, vocal, cultural, regional, and theme. It seems like it's going to be um, the track will have many genres, for instance, or many moods that could be possible.
right,
Like
right.
it could overlap into multiples of these. Um, so in that way,
Yeah, yeah,
has many categorizations. Well, I guess tell me where that goes. Where are you thinking? Like,
yeah. Let's try
how
that.
do you tie that to things like genre and mood?
Uh, put an S2 categorization, and then I'm imagining it might have like a type. So it could be
Mhm.
genre or something like that. And then so you could have multiple of the same type, or maybe it's like a, I don't know, maybe it's an enum. Let's just start with that kind, and then put in there genre, mood, what's cultural, regional, that's interesting. Theme, it's interesting. Era, also be year, could be date or something, and then you can have a bunch of these that would know how to generate themselves based. They're just getting a track fed to them, and then you know, oh, I know how which data it is that I'm supposed to be working on. So you could have, I'm guessing maybe like a key or a or like a value or something. So either you fetch it from the track immediately, or you like fetch it in and save it in a way. Let's see if we just like categorize categorize a track or something, and then it would know it's based on its own kind or something. Maybe it's like a strategy or whatever to call on the track, and then you get some details out, and you can update details, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I'm
strategy is
wondering
then based
in
on
some
just
cases,
kind or
like
something, but
something like year and date could be pulled out of the metadata of the track, but something like pulling all the genres from the track, it may not be listed on the track, or our system, we may want to say that we fine tune genres to match not what's in the track itself, but like we're going to maintain source of truth over like what gets what the categorizations for a track are.
right,
Um,
right, not let the metadata
we
dictate
don't
everything.
call it
Yeah,
pop
yeah,
or something. I don't know. We don't call it hip hop. We call it something, I don't know, something else.
right, yeah, yeah, yep, yep. No, that makes sense. Yeah, interesting. Yeah,
Or it just may be that the metadata in the track is not rich enough to provide all of the categorizations that we'd want. And so we have people
yeah,
going in and manually adding those or backfilling,
yep,
and not onto
yep,
the not into the metadata itself, but into our own system for that track.
yeah. I do think something like this would scale if you maybe don't add the kind here or something. Because that's
Mhm.
maybe, or like treat it like an enum, but maybe you could still have a kind type or something, but then we could also make some UI where people could go on custom and like, hey, I'm adding a new genre to this, and then you can do it from a UI or something, and it just gets added to the track and stays there. But then you can
Mhm.
still have some of these that would be the system would derive based on metadata as like the template or something. But then
Yeah.
that only happens when you when you add a track, for instance, or something like that. I think this would kind of scale for that in a way.
So let me push back and ask a little bit more about like
Yeah.
what why not do something like make a genre model or a theme model.
Mm. Yeah, I guess I guess I'm trying to keep it without needing to model those for some reason, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure
For
why.
flexibility beyond, like, maybe in anticipation that
Yeah,
there might be new categorizations that we need to add to the system without adding new database tables.
yeah, I think so in a way. Or it's like these all seem like they're kind of similar in a way. Like, or they
Yeah.
could be kind of like coalesced a little bit, so they're really
Mhm.
similar. All these
Yeah.
like different because it's ultimately it seems like it's based on some type of little bit of data
Mhm.
somewhere. And then knowing
Yeah.
how to find it. So it's almost like a path thing for the categorization. Go, oh, here's where it is I'm looking at, so that I can find a specific value that it is I need to search around
Yeah.
um, to match this thing or something. Or it's almost like a match thing in a way. It's like
Yeah.
show me all the genres that are pop or whatever, like all the songs
Mhm.
that are in the pop genre or whatever. And then, well, that's in a way just a categorization. That's I guess you could find track categorization dot pop or whatever. Oh
Mhm.
wait, it needs to be dot what would that be? It would be genres, and then it would be where the keys or value, I suppose, in a way, is pop or something. And you can find
Mhm.
those, or you could find what a value is either pop or hip hop or hip hooray, yeah. Birthday songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that might be a way to do it.
Mhm.
That's still trying to. I think this to me it seems like right now we're at the system. I don't want to know too much about all these details. I want to try to keep that a
Yeah.
little bit um analogous in a way. But that might be
Yeah.
the wrong call. I'm not quite sure yet. It just
Okay.
seems like it's
Yeah.
like otherwise we get into designing the theme genre and all that stuff and trying to coalesce them into a way that's a little bit more generic, I guess. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. It might be the wrong call. But yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think this kind of work for that. And then I guess if we do errors or whatever, it's not just Taylor Swift. Let's see.
Mhm.
But then that could also be like 80s or whatever it is that we define based on that,
Mhm.
or 90s, which could also
Right.
scale to multiple different values or something.
Mhm.
And I guess the values could be preset somewhere or whatever based
Mhm.
on what the valid ones are. So I think you could do like a drop down list for these things. Oh, I want to just pick an error and then here's all the values we recognize.
Yeah, as admins of the system, we'll need to be able to go in and add the 2030s when 2030 rolls
Yeah,
around.
right. Yep, yep. Mm, yeah, I think that would kind of work in a way, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we have something that's a little bit general purpose around these different things, and this is the kind attribute, what it is that they're trying to represent, this different
Mhm.
categories in kind.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And then we're just using the association to be like, oh, this track actually belongs to this bucket.
Right.
And I suppose in a way, we might not need the system to go in and generate these categorizations itself. We could just suggest them on a page or
Mhm.
something like that, so that humans could go in and be like, oh, this fits, this doesn't fit, or whatever. Like um categorization suggestion or something like that. It's like, oh, this song was written or was made released in 1986. Do you want to add it to like the 80s categorization, for instance?
Mhm.
Um, something like that potentially. So we're not tying it too much to the metadata or whatever, but that could be a
Yeah.
suggested thing later on or something.
Yeah.
Might be a way to
Yeah,
do
it seems
that.
like it could go either way. Like, it's you can you could really do both. You can, as you import songs, you pull metadata and set those base values, and then they can be
Yeah,
either tweaked by admins of the system who either add more rich data to it or modify it if the types don't match what we have in our system, and then
yeah,
even
yeah.
pass on to the users to, or somebody else
Right.
to
Yeah,
suggest or kind of layer on extra.
yeah, yeah. I think that could work. But yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
at least we're writing down. Okay. So that was the categorizations, that's song recommendations. So now I want to see, based on these categorizations, figure out how to generate recommendations. And I'm guessing that's based on whatever these are, genres, eras, what do you have, mood, theme, that kind of stuff. Yeah, probably like beats per minute, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think
So
we
just
can
basically,
assume if we know that for a given track we can find its nearest neighbors,
yeah,
find the 10 nearest neighbors to the song, we can probably just call out to something that gives us that.
yeah. I'm almost wondering if we should model some of that in a way of be like, nearest. I'm wondering if it's gonna look like this. We get a few, we almost give it a few categorizations or something like that, or maybe
Pass
it's,
them in.
so maybe this is like a scope or something like that. Like what if this is that look like what's I'm trying to look for here? We have this, and then we do track like nearest, and we pass in genres, for instance. So we're basing it based off of these things, and then we're nearest,
Mhm.
and I guess we do. I'm guessing we'd almost return a different structure, but this would be a way to find 100 nearest based on genre. So I'm guessing this is almost like neighbors or something. The new, I don't know if that's a poll or whatever. Categorizations. Or like a query kind of thing to figure out what to find. So it's almost returning a different structure. And then it wraps some of the relation API. So we could do these kinds of things to keep pass it, give it more query data or something.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure. We looked at the nearest neighbor algorithm earlier. Like this is too this is too advanced for me.
As
So I'm
far
not
as I
quite sure
know,
what
you
to take
can't.
it, but
I don't think that you can add categorizations to it. I think all of
hmm.
that is done at the beginning when you either when you create the embeddings, or you include all the dimensions to begin with. So the categorizations are all
Okay.
the dimensions, and then it maps that out to this multi-dimensional space. And once that's set,
Okay.
the relationships, the closeness of one track to any others is set from those things. Sort of
Okay. Yeah,
regardless of.
so it's almost like it's using the categorizations to build this three-dimensional space. That's
Mhm.
kind of what it is. And
Yeah.
then you could give it either like just a genre, so just the errors, for instance. And that's a way to figure out, oh, how to map within that. But it uses every single category that a particular track has to build that space or to know where a particular track
Mhm.
fits within that space.
And then I think so
Okay.
once you find, so
Okay.
probably what you end up doing is finding all the ones closest, and then if you need to filter down further, you could. So if you have a track that's pop, all the other ones close to it are probably going to be pop, unless it's like very
Mm,
obscure, like at the very edge of that space of what pop, the pop cluster or something like that. And
I see.
then
Okay. Yeah.
if you
So
needed to
yeah.
restrict down further once you get that result set back from the nearest neighbors, then you could, I think. I think that's how you would do it.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Now I'm almost wondering if it would then look like this in a way. Oh, I cannot spell that word. Categorization dot genres or something. So it would almost more be like that, where you kind of joining based on the results that you get from the nearest, and then it could be nearest 100 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Well, that's a little bit of figure out where does the limit go or something in a way, but like how
Yeah,
do you want
yeah.
to, because oh, the nearest ones had nothing from this genre, so then we need to widen the search in a way. So that's a little
There are some interesting parts there when you get to
yeah,
like either gaps in the space, or someone doesn't have any play history. What do you do then? So those are sort of things we could
right.
probably leave out of this
Yeah,
discussion,
yep,
probably.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but then also like this piece doesn't take into account the idea that with the custom playlists, the temp well whatever, however you define that custom template or a custom playlist, it's you're probably setting specific categorizations to pull from, and those become the
Yes.
starting places for those tracks to find um the ones that would
Yeah.
match our
And then
listening
you're
history.
looping through the tracks in the listening history, probably every one of them, to use to build a result set from that for that particular playlist. Okay.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, so that would almost be like if you have where you have a user and then I guess you'd include, so you join, I guess this is joins this today. Let's see. You join to the history and then to the track on the history. And then from there, you'd kind of be able to, well, that's what you build out the, not the categorizations from or whatever, but I guess I'm a little bit lost where to go from that. But that's what you do, right? You figure out all the use this to base. That's like the potential tracks you want to find the nearest ones too. So I guess here you'd want to go in and filter based on the
filtering
same
down
categorizations that are in the
the custom playlist.
yeah
Yeah, if you have a
that
custom
are yeah
playlist that defines, I think it might be helpful to model out what the custom playlist does, like how it
yeah let's do
sets
that.
up its rules so that we know how to get to the tracks that
Yeah.
would answer that.
Because what I think I'm almost wondering about is if we then give this stations or something, and I guess that
Yeah.
I guess it's interesting because it almost might be that a
Hmm.
categorization could belong to many tracks in a way. So they're
Yeah.
kind of shared in a way. And so that's just how you map them together
Yeah.
throughout the whole system in a way. So there's just one 80s categorization, and then all the 80s songs go into that,
Yeah.
are linked that way, essentially. I think that's kind of what, yeah, because that would work like has it belongs to many kind of.
Hmm.
And I guess this would actually be more like, what if we do has many categorization, or is what is it? I'm trying to find a join table link or something. And then through categorization every time. Link, probably links. And in the categories, oh, now we're back to, okay, well, I'm not gonna bother with all the, I'm just gonna do it this way, link. And then that would belong to, and this would then have many links too. Oh, just there, or season, right? And then has many tracks to the categorization links or something. So they could find each other in that sense. I think that's kind
Yeah.
of what I would do to model it. And then here, this would then be, it belongs to track and then belongs to categorization. So that way we have to join model where we can link all these things to get together. So we just have that one categorization for like the 80s or something like that. And
Yeah.
it goes into a particular kind, that's just the errors, all that stuff. And then we could kind of build up however many different categorizations we want the system to have. And then we could probably also build some software. If we add a new, like you said, the 2030s or whatever, when they come around, it's like, oh, we can
Yeah.
go in and add this thing. And now we could generate based on all the data we have in the system, just like crawl through all the songs and figure out, you know, and we could probably add a filter to this, like filter by released on or whatever, and then or release that or whatever,
Hmm.
and then find all the ones that fit and then just chuck them in there.
Yeah.
I think I could work.
Yeah.
Yeah, does this make sense? I think that's
I
kind of
think
what I would
so.
do.
Did we ever name anything category, just category by itself?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Because I'm
So
wondering,
yeah, that's
I'm
almost
just
like a better.
wondering, another thought would be we could call it categorization and category instead of categorization and categorization link. I don't know if that's right, but that's just
Oh,
a thought. Like, is a categorization, if you do you have a category and then a categorization is for that particular track?
yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, so this would be the category. I can try to go through with that and say category, right? And then this would be the categorization. Categorization. That's what you meant, right? Okay, and then
Yeah.
this would belong to a category. Okay. And here, this would then be
Categorization.
categorizations. Categories. That's right. And here then tracks through that. Okay, that makes sense.
What do you think about that?
Makes sense. Let's see, has many categories. Category. It's getting gory.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, that I like that. Yeah. Right, we got everything. History track, that's all the other stuff. Track category. Yeah, I like that. That sounds, categorization is also so wordy, but yeah. It just fits because categorizations are not something we really need to, we just need them to be there in the system, but I like that it's overall yeah, a possible category that a track could have, and in the categorization is the particular one. Yeah, I really like that. Okay, cool.
Okay.
And I think this makes sense too in this like namespacing stuff.
Yeah.
There's probably some class names we're missing everywhere, but that's okay. Cool. So then, okay, and then we're back to here. This is then categories. Okay,
Yeah.
that feels nicer.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so you could have a somebody like an admin or whatever goes in and adds a new mix or whatever, like
Yeah.
running or whatever, and it
Yeah.
goes in, oh, this has these categories, go
Hmm.
ahead and pick them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll have like a name and probably a release date, and then it's got these categories. And then it needs to do something then to take that category and go through all the users and build
Yeah,
that playlist of tracks based on those categories.
yeah, that makes sense. So what if we do what if we do one that's just like categorize or whatever? I don't know what the word would be for a particular, just to see what it looks like for whatever user, and then we'd use the user dot listening history dot tracks or something, I think,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's where we had that earlier there. We just call it history, listening history. Well, that's kind of almost the same. Most of history. Okay. I almost want to just speak history. This is kind of
Yeah.
within the domain.
Yeah, I can't
Listeners
think of anything
history.
else they would have a history for. So
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, where were we? We're here. Okay, let's do history, and then we have the tracks there. That also helps explain a little bit. So then from the tracks here, then we can build the nearest based on the categories that's in us. Right? I think so.
So we need to find out of those tracks, we need to filter down to the ones that fit any of those categories, I would assume.
Category. I think we could just do this and have ActWorker do it. Merge.
Mhm.
Oh, the where, I think, like this.
Okay. Yeah.
And we probably need joins categories. What track have category? What was that? Right? Maybe it's like has many track category, has many tracks, so tracks has many category. Okay, I think that will work. Category is probably categories, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And is that I have no idea, but something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I think that will work.
that will give us all of their, that would build a playlist based on all of their previously listened to songs. It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily add any songs that they haven't listened to. That would be
right.
like the nearest neighbor thing to go
Yeah,
after
yeah, yeah.
other ones. So if we wanted
Yes,
to
so this
add,
would also be kind of interesting if we left it here, then it would just be a particular song based on particular criteria or these categories that the admins have picked to just from your own songs.
yeah.
All the stuff you've listened to before, which is also kind of interesting. All the
Hmm.
songs that you've listened to before, that's great for running or great for,
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever else, lunch or
And that's probably
whatever.
very close to what they do for like Spotify Wrapped or something like that. When they, at the end of the year,
Ah,
they
yeah.
tell you like, here's all the stuff you listened to this past year. Do you want to create a playlist of your top songs from the last year or something like that? Um,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
it's probably something similar to that where it's using just
Yeah.
your history.
And I think it's interesting without having written it out. I feel like our structure here would actually be pretty easy at supporting something like that. The way we kind of sketched it out. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
But then the nearest bit. So we filtered down to these track listings that fit these specific categories that were chosen for this mix. Um, and how do we do the nearest thing? Is to just like do nearest, and then I guess we have a limit from that's also on this mix or something. Like I guess
If
there's no
we
limit
have
system.
if we have a set of songs that we already filtered down to based on listens that match the categories we want, we could go through that set of songs and find each one of those songs the nearest songs to it, which I think we
Ah,
can
yeah,
safely assume kind of match a similar vibe.
yeah. What if we just do like 10 or something, and then we could
Hmm.
do, oh, I probably want to map these over. I think that's a good idea. Map, and then we could just take the first 100 or whatever. What, unique or something.
Hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna
Hmm.
create a lot of objects, but just, so it looks like we find the nearest 10 based on our track, so we don't go too far out, and then grab the unique one, and then the first 100 based on that. So we're building a ton of objects here if you have a ton in your history, but,
Yeah.
um, but
Yeah.
something like that might be a way to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, you could even order, I wonder if you could order the, well, that's getting into another thing, but another way to handle limiting the list would be to find the tracks that you've listened to the most as a proxy to like what you would most like in a playlist.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we have the tracks, we have the history here, tracks within the history. So we'd almost need to filter here too,
Yeah.
or sort by listening count or something. Yeah.
I wouldn't
Okay.
necessarily need to go into that part, but
Right.
okay, so if
Yeah.
we have something like this, the next thing that I'm wondering about is like, how do we then store this mix so that it doesn't have to be,
Yeah. Calculate every
you're not
time. So
generating
it's
this.
almost
Yeah.
like we want some sort of oh, this it's not really we just build here. So I almost wonder, what if we do like a class just cast mix build, like a particular build over mix.
Mhm. Right,
And
because
then
they
this is,
can be refreshed over time because
yeah,
this is really a snapshot based on current
yeah.
listens.
And then this has many tracks that belongs to a user, and then there's probably some sort of mix here that it belongs to. Let's see, it belongs to user. This was the mix that generated or something. So regenerate could almost be like generate, could then be a mix dot. Oh, that's interesting. We made it a class method. That's probably not what we want. Interesting. Okay. So this is almost like a mixed definition in a way, I'm wondering,
Hmm.
to be honest. And this is more a namespace. There's a
Mhm.
specific definition that you can generate for a specific user
Mhm.
and mix a build for another user in a way. And then we could do update tracks to that or something. I think that would be a way to like regenerate the whole thing because we're removing all the old tracks and based on whatever it is that it gives us back.
Mhm.
If we're so that's the way to refresh them, I think. Would that work? I have no idea. This is more than definition.
We need
And then it has the
some
many or something.
we probably need a join table on between mix build and track. Am I thinking
Ah,
right?
right. They can be in many. Yeah, okay. I think so. Let's build, and then we have. I'm also going to say link again. What if we do that? It belongs to a build, and it belongs to track. Then we got the join table. As many tracks. What? Then we have as many links, and then it has many tracks true. For these links, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that makes sense because then it could belong to any number of builds essentially every track should be able to belong to. Yeah, okay.
So the one
Oh,
thing I'm
and then
wondering
this
about
is not.
here, looking at mixed definition and mixed build.
Yep. Yep.
Definition, it's maybe a little surprising name to me. I don't know.
Yep.
It's my first feeling about it. It's like a little surprised. Like I wouldn't know looking at that what that meant.
Yeah, what it does.
I'm,
Yeah.
I might think something more like template,
Oh, yeah, that's a way
which I
better
had
word.
started to. I'd kind of pre-thought a little bit about that, so
No, but that's way better.
just an
That's cool. Yeah.
idea.
Definition was the first thing I thought of. But yeah, template is I was gonna put this here. Because that also feels like that fits with like template, scaffold, blueprint, whatever we want to call it, something like that. And then that fits within a specific build of that. I think I really like that. I feel like that actually fits.
Okay, cool.
Um, yeah, that makes sense to me. Does the template need anything else? Well, it's not for a specific user because we're doing it for that. And then I
It's really
suppose
got a
here we
it's
could
probably
do,
got a name and a description, and then this def you know the definition is the category, the set of categories um that are particular to this template that
yeah, that we're using for the build itself. Yeah, yeah,
mhm.
yeah,
It's basically just describing the vibe of the tracks that should be included in it based on the user listens.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense to me. Okay, cool. Did we nail it, or are there more things we need to look at? I'm almost wondering. I've wonder if this is that how you do it in Active Record to update our
I can't remember.
association and
Yeah,
clear the whole
to
thing? I
get will
think you
that work
can.
for the joins?
I think yeah, because this uses the setter.
Okay. Yeah.
I think so. I think it will do it that way. But yeah,
Hmm.
that might be one thing to test or whatever. But I feel like for right now, it sort of clarifies what it is we're going for. Mm,
The one thing I'm wondering
build
about for build
link.
4 is
Yeah,
whether you need to have the tracks filtered as one set and then the neighbors, like all of the related ones, and then you join them together, or if nearest will get give you both the track and its nearest. It may just be that the nearest 10 includes. We need like that track and its neighbors when we're building this, I think. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, we want the track included too, yeah.
I think so.
Something like that, maybe?
Yeah. Hmm.
It's a starter thing.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about this? Looks pretty good. I think this is probably pretty solid. I'm curious if you have any thoughts about what you would do if a person has very limited listen history. They just got their Spotify
Hmm.
membership. They don't have any plays yet. What do we do?
Yeah. How do we incorporate that? Well, it's interesting because I think we kind of nailed it with some of these categories and categorizations that we could pluck from the rest of the system. Like
Hmm.
if we assume we had some sort of listening count somewhere, maybe we could just go by what's most popular on the platform and
Popularity.
then just
Yeah.
assume other people are enjoying that too.
Yeah.
So I suppose what we could do is like we pick the first 100 here, and then we could find a set of songs that we add on to that. That's like
Hmm.
whatever your remaining thing is. So this is
You
like
just fill with popular.
from
Yeah.
own listening history, and then we do some sort of oh well, you can actually just do from own history. Do that, and then here, whatever is if it's more than or equal to 100, then we can just turn that, or else we can probably clean this up a little bit, but I'm not sure what to write. From own history plus. So we want some extra results essentially. So then we could do
From most popular, from popular. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, track that most popular or whatever. I don't know how to quantify that in a way, or like, because that's almost like you want, I think at the scale, well, we shouldn't really think of the scale Spotify for right now, but basically might want to wonder is like some sort of global listening count somewhere that's tracked somewhere and just like keeps incrementing every so often. Um, so we could have some sort of idea of a most popular, then this would probably go in and consult that somewhere, like the listening count sorted by or whatever,
Yeah.
some sort of, so it's probably a join table somewhere, like a global listening count. It's just like keeps probably that, what's the technique called? The incremented buffers or whatever it is, or something like slotted counters, like that whole
Yeah.
thing,
Uh-huh.
where you write to a different table
Uh-huh.
in like 10 different slots, and then over time you have a different process that goes, listens and coalesces all of those and writes them to the actual table, so you don't have lock contention on the single really heavily written to table. For instance, like it could be
Right.
track listening count, but that might be written to like all the time. So if you do slotted
Hmm.
counters, you can kind of split those writes over into like 10 different um tables and columns, I think, something like that, and then
Yeah.
coalesce them later. That's probably how I do that, but I don't think we need to
That's
write it
cool.
out. So assuming we can do most popular, and then that's also ordered by that. What if we do ordered by popularity or something? And then that's not how you spell that. Popularity. That's still not, there we go. And then we want to do joins categories again.
Mhm.
Categories, where category forwards, and then I kind of want to just do the forwarding from Ruby 3 or whatever.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
Okay, so, and I guess we want to do the flat map again. Track, and we do the track, and then we do track map nearest. Oh, not 100, just 10. That's also, well, this is probably going to give us more than 100 or something. If you
Hmm.
need the first. So I guess technically this would load every track or whatever, or something, right? If we do flat map.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably put a limit on it or something. That's interesting, but
Right. After the
what if we
filter, yeah, some kind of
do
limit.
just do like the first 100 and then assume we can find
Yeah.
nearest 10 or something?
Hmm.
I suppose we could almost do a limit 10 or something, and then, but that's also
I mean, I
that feels
guess we
kind of
kind of
silly
need
in
the
a way.
same thing for the user's history as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. We assume that.
So really we end up having these two sources
Yeah.
of original like tracks to like build off of. One is the user's history, and then one is the system's popular tracks.
Yeah, yeah. So to backfill anything that we haven't been able to fill in for however the playlist is. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
interesting.
It's
So it
also
almost feels like
interesting
this
that
would
like
keep
on the one case we've got an
going in a
order
way.
by popularity, and the other one we're not really ordering. But I wonder if
Yeah.
it makes sense to order both and sort of prioritize what's most popular both for the user and over all users.
But I almost wonder if we could do this and then put in the user here or something
Hmm.
based on its own listing counts or something like that. It's almost like
Mhm.
it wants to take the history or something like that.
Huh.
Or I wonder
Interesting.
if you could do Active Record has that thing where you do extensions on it on like
Mhm.
an association. So you could probably do something like, what is it? History tracks, where's that? Listen has a track there, whatever listens, history, where's that? Where's the tracks come from? Oh, we didn't set that up. Oh, it has many listens, right? Oh, that's here, right? It has many tracks. No, it has many listens, and then it has many tracks. True listens. Okay. So here's where I wonder we could do, and we do word by popularity
Mm.
or something, and then have it defined and already picking up the user potentially. But it's a little bit
Mhm.
weird because it's not based on a class method, so it's kind of, I don't know about that, but I don't know. History.
Hmm.
Oh, it's that self here. I don't know, but it's a way to where to find the listing counts or something like that. But that's scope
Yeah.
too. So this might be listing counts might be something you put into history too, or on the listen or something like that. Or well, I guess you in our system you'd actually join through all the listens to find out and then find a count from however many there is of a particular track, which is then. But yeah, I don't know if I like that. Maybe it should just go through. So it's not as magic or something. But I
That
think
is a point of like where I guess we're kind of back to the architecture here for tracking listens and how you
yeah,
access
yeah,
that. And there might just
yeah.
be, in this case, like a way that you do it for the case of one user. For an individual user is different than the way you look at it for the entire system.
Yeah, 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 yeah. There might be some more things in here, but I think I almost feel like I feel like we should probably stop by now because I feel like we've gotten to a good place with all of this stuff. But I think
Yeah.
what I do here as the next bit is something like have an idea of a pool or something that you keep pulling tracks out of or something. That's sort of the naming I'm coming around to. So you keep filling in until you
Hmm.
reach the count you're aiming for. And
Yeah.
then the
Okay.
system is probably, a little bit unoptimized for that or whatever, because it's sort of, at the scale that it's probably needs to be a lot more advanced, but it's a little bit out of scope for what we should do right now. But I wonder what you're thinking, if you should we continue more with this or like trying
I
to
think
cook
this is
because we've got
good.
some duplication here, but we could kind of so this has a little bit of the assumption that now we found the popular tracks, and we probably also want to what is it like that we are including from our history, I think. And then we need those, and then, oh, I cannot type here, history. And we need those, and then we take the first 100 out of that. And then I
Hmm.
suppose you could keep going or whatever until you found the 100 or whatever. So you can
Hmm.
find up to that limit you're going for. But yeah, somewhere along those lines, I think. Because
Yeah.
yeah, if we had enough from our own history, we don't really care about what's going on on the platform. But if we don't, we could
Right.
always backfill with more things. And then the more you use the platform, the more it gets tailored to yourself. Which kind of
Yeah.
feels like that really fits the goal of what it is it's doing or something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
cool.
cool. I think that works. Cool. Is there anything else we should say about it? Or but I think this is really all these different join tables and all this naming thing. I think this is actually really going to scale. And then here we scoped all the business logic into pretty much this one place. We did all the data modeling around it and so forth. So now we can kind of plug things out, and it's kind of readable still. It's kind
Hmm.
of, could definitely clean some of this up or whatever, but I think it makes sense what it is that it's trying to do. Or would dedicate some real engineering time to figure out how to like hammer this out now that we've got a data model. That's actually pretty flexible, I think. Um, cool. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with what we have so far.
Yeah. That's cool. Do
And
you
I think the category worked out in a way of like being able to give it flexibility without being too in the weeds of modeling too many things.
yeah.
Because I think if we had modeled shower, mood, all that stuff, we'd have to incorporate all that from different tables into one thing versus having this more normalized, denormalized, whatever the one is,
Yeah.
table here. Maybe, I
I
don't know.
do wonder
Or it might
if
work.
in the system, if something like genres and eras becomes a way of that you might want to be able to traverse the system as a user.
Right, yeah.
So I wonder if like it needs its own additional state being like managed, like more than just the tag of like pop, like it has a further description or like
Right, yeah. I see what you
things
mean.
like
Yeah,
that.
so for instance, if you have the pop category, where it could have a description on it that's like, hey,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, that could almost be like a track category description, like a secondary thing that then uses the value and the kind to then look up in that table and find a description. So you're kind
Hmm.
of splitting both of them off. I don't know if that's a
Mhm.
good idea or whatnot. Maybe a category could keep that too, but to me, it almost feels like category is more for that linking thing.
Yeah.
And then its own metadata could also come from a different place where you didn't store some similar, I don't know, maybe that's silly. I don't know, I'm not sure. It could be belongs to details or something, and then that's where you get some of the description, whatever, name, cover
Yeah.
art kind of thing. So you can just
Right.
expose that on the in the UI somewhere, and then that's how you kind of navigate. So the category itself is a little bit lighter because it's used for all
Mhm.
this tracking
Right.
around, and you don't
Right.
store all those details because you only need that for the UI bit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Maybe.
I like that.
I think that's kind of what I would do it as.
Yeah.
What I see sometimes is that thing of like, oh, we have a user model, let's just put everything in there or
Put
whatever.
everything right.
Versus sometimes you don't need everything there, or you can put it in a slight different model, like a details or whatever thing, and then that's what you use to expose in the UI or something like the visibility thing versus just a pure connection parts. Um, cool.
Yeah. I like it.
Sweet. Yeah, and this could have been cleaned up, but like I'm actually really happy with all the naming and stuff.
Mhm.
I feel like it's really interesting that if this works, we kind of got rebuilding happening like one line, which is really interesting. That it's like that's
Yeah.
pretty cool that worked out that well. Which to me is the power of some of this stuff. It starts hit a structure you can kind of, and this is complex, but that's not necessarily incidental complexity. That's more
Mhm.
just the complexity of like filling in from these different histories or whatever we want to do it as. Maybe there's a different way of doing this. I'm not sure, but
Do you have any thoughts
cool.
about how you would test build for?
Uh no, I didn't figure that at all.
I mean,
Um,
that's not really the exercise. That's probably
right,
not
exactly.
important. That's more
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if we're done, I'm just curious.
Yeah, because I almost feel like what I would want to do now is we have all this stuff, so I feel like I would well, definitely sleep on it and everything, and then take it further with either figuring out if this makes sense to more team members than
Yeah.
just us two, and then take it further to be like, does this structuring make sense? Does anybody else have any ideas for how do we actually really crack this problem now that we have this modeling? And can we even crack this problem with this modeling, or do we actually need a different structure than what we thought of? But this is like more of a well template in a template for figuring out um how to take it further, because I feel like this definitely have room for improvement, but I don't know how to. I feel like this is kind of the best that I can do for right now. So either
Yeah.
if I sleep on it, I could figure out some new ideas for how to take it further or clean it up a little bit more. But there's definitely that feeling of like, how do we handle that thing of filling it up to the limit? To me,
Yeah.
that's the main thing that I'm kind of, how do we do that? And then when things cross over from, oh, we ran out of my own history, we got to go further in some way. And then also making sure that the tracks are unique or something. There's definitely something there, and maybe also something with the algorithm of not loading too much data and all that stuff into memory, and then But
Mhm.
yeah, I think something like that. But yeah,
Cool. Hmm.
I think that's maybe where I take the next bit if we're to continue with this. But yeah, but I kind of like that it's a little bit not ugliness, it's a little bit complex. It's like, oh, this is where we'd go the next bit.
Yeah.
How do we this is the next bit in a way. But I think the modeling we've done somehow will work for this stuff, at least enough to write this version. So it feels like we will write a cleaner version potentially.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, or we need a dedicated session or more thinking around that stuff for the pure algorithm part or something. But it
Mhm.
always needs that in my experience. It's like that's a little bit
Yeah.
different from all the data modeling. So
Yeah.
um, but yeah, figuring out that algorithm will then expose a bunch of stuff in the data model. So then you go back and then like work, but um at least we've got a bunch of different naming that we can kind of that I think scales and actually holds
Mhm.
up the more
Yeah.
you work with it. Yeah. The only thing is like listening, listen and stuff like that, but um, it's a little clunky in a way. But yeah. Oh, what if it's just I'm wondering what if we do a history and then we do history listen or something.
Hmm.
I don't know, something like that. History belongs to track. So listens, something like that. No, I think
Hmm.
we're not part of all the class things. Oh, maybe I'm not sure. Anyway, uh, cool. Anything else you want to say, or should we pause the recording or stop? Or
Yeah, this is good. I think it's a good starting place.
cool, let's stop the sharing, and then let's. I was about to hit the big red end button, but that's not what we want. Stop recording.